Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us on this important and prestigious occasion for both the Department of Plant Biology, the Department of Horticulture, the College of Natural Sciences, and the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, and the MSU community overall. Our program today will touch briefly on the creation and importance of the MSU Foundation Professor designation and the long-term impact that these prestigious positions have had and will have on the continued excellence of our university environment. Let me personally congratulate Jiming, who's changed seats since the last time, on his accomplishments to date, which will be recognized by his receipt of this professorship. Following some background about these positions and their importance, we will hear from Jiming and have his formal investiture as an MSU Foundation professor. Finally, David Washburn, Executive Director of MSU Foundation, will provide a few closing remarks on how and why these professorships came to be. Let me just go off script for a minute here and to say that when we have new faculty come to MSU and that that individual agrees to a joint appointment between two academic units and basically signs on to attend 2 department meetings every month for the rest of their time here, you know that that individual really, really wants to be a Spartan. With that, I'll turn the program over to MSU Vice President for Research and Graduate Education, Steve Shute.
Good afternoon. I have a whole folder here of boring administrator remarks that someone prepared for me, which I'm going to set aside and try to be a little bit more brief. These professorships were created for the purpose of rewarding excellence in research and in making a contribution to the future. The other goal behind these professorships is to recruit and retain world-class talent in order that Michigan State University can continue to be a world-class university. The professorships are sponsored by a collaboration of 3 entities. One is the MSU Foundation, which Dave represents. The other is the Provost's office, and the third is my office. And each of these awards are carefully scrutinized, and if you look at the group of Foundation professors on campus, I think the number must be something like 30 by now, is that right? It's really one of the most elite groups of faculty that we have here and that you would find at any university. Now, as far as excellence in research, you're going to hear quite a bit about that from other speakers in a moment. As far as the competitiveness issue, I want to remark that we recruited Professor Jiang away from another great university, the University of Wisconsin. And although Wisconsin faces its own challenges, some of you may know, Madison is a lovely town, and it's always been extremely hard to pry people out of Madison. It took quite a lot of effort to get Jiming out of Madison and here, but we're extremely happy that we've gotten him here, and already I'm hearing all kinds of things about the dynamic collaborations that he's started with lots of MSU faculty. I just want to offer one anecdote before I finish. So Doug Gage, who works with me very closely on these recruitments, GI2 recruitments or Global Impact Initiative recruitments, of which he is one, especially with the senior hires where there's typically a pretty big financial commitment on the part of the university, we meet with all of the candidates to make sure, just to do one final sanity check. I might not know very much about plant science or horticulture, but I feel it's my responsibility to at least meet with the candidate and just get a feel for that person before we make the final decision to go ahead. And the thing that I will always remember about Professor Jiang is that a story he told us about how when he was just a young professor, he's a kind of researcher, he's known as somebody who can bridge the gap between really complicated abstract things that are done in the laboratory and real applied things that are done in the field by real farmers and agriculturalists. He's the kind of guy who can bridge that gap. And he told us a story about how when he was a young professor, he used to work out in the fields And somehow through the state, maybe it was the state of Wisconsin, he would get help in the form of convicts. Am I right? People, prisoners, people who are actually in prison were asked to work with him on some projects. And he was very proud that despite English being only his second language and quite different from his native language, maybe it's even his third, I don't know, maybe he speaks Zhejianhua. But he was very proud that he could use profanity in English as well as any of those convicts. And although he did demonstrate to us in my office, I think he won't do that today. But in private, I encourage you to ask him to demonstrate his special talent. So let me just finish there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Kirkpatrick, Dean of the College of Natural Science. And my big job today is simply to say welcome and congratulations. We are extremely glad that you're here. And on behalf of the college, its faculty and staff, this is terrific. So, as you heard from Steve, these named professorships are really the hallmark of all great universities. And we are very appreciative of the foundation and Steve's office and the provost's office for supporting these. They have been a terrific vehicle for building and retaining strength. The recipients of the foundation professorships retain the title throughout the time they're here, and they receive $60,000 a year for 5 years in support of their research. So the check's in the mail, or at least in the account, I hope. And foundation professors are expected to not just continue doing their outstanding research, but to take a leadership role in developing the research and educational programs in Michigan State. And that's we've seen that over and over again. So there are other people who are going to talk about Zhiming's research, but it's in plant sciences, which is, of course, one of the great jewels of Michigan State University. Having him here is going to help guarantee the continued strength of not just plant biology and horticulture, but plant sciences all across the university. But these professorships have a broader impact. They help ensure that we can attract strong graduate students and postdocs and attract other strong faculty members. This is an autocatalytic reaction in my language. So, and they help ensure that our future alumni are going to be positioned to be leaders in the world. And, we do not many things at universities. We do great research and we do education. And these professorships play critical roles in both of those. So, Zhiming, again, on behalf of the college, congratulations. We're looking forward to great things. And next up we have Danny Schnell, chair of the Department of Plant Biology, who's going to talk about some science.
Well, thanks, Jim, and thanks to everyone again for joining us here today. I am pleased and very honored to represent the Department of Plant Biology in this occasion on the investiture of Zhiming Jiang as a foundation professor. And I guess I'm also very proud that, in fact, Zhiming has not demonstrated the aptitude that he acquired in the field in any faculty meetings to date, and so I hope that continues to be the case. So, yeah, well, let's hope we don't hear that. Anyway, I also want to extend our gratitude in the department for the MSU Foundation professorships, because it is really, again, through this effort that we're able to renew, reshape, and retain faculty leaders. And that really has increased our impact and visibility, and therefore our ability to maintain our leadership in plant sciences in the country and in the world. And Jiming is a perfect example, I think, of how these foundation professorships enable us to build and strengthen the faculty and continue to provide leadership in this area. So Jiming completed his bachelor's degree in agronomy at Zhejiang Agricultural University and his master's degree in genetics from Nanjing Agricultural University. I won't say in what years that was, but it was a little while ago. He subsequently then enrolled in graduate studies at Kansas State University in genetics, where he worked with Bikram Gill and received his PhD in 1993. And just to give you a sense of Jiming's productivity and sort of foreshadowing his success, he and Bikram co-authored an astonishing 24 papers together. So for any students that are in the audience, just think about that. No pressure. Yeah, no pressure. Just an expectation, that's all. No. So in 1994, then he moved to the Department of Genetics at Yale University to conduct postdoctoral work, and after a short time then took his first faculty position as an assistant professor in the Department of Horticulture at Wisconsin-Madison. And then he moved and joined the Departments of Plant Biology and Horticulture at MSU here in August of 2017. And he also has a partial appointment in the MSU Ag Bio Research, which again, I think, following on what Vance and Jim and Steve said, gives you hopefully a sense of the breadth of Jiming's scientific as well as applied interests and how he really does bridge so many different areas. And that really brings a dimension to the department that's really impactful and important. So Jiming has made a number of outstanding contributions to his discipline and is one of the most respected researchers in plant cytogenetics and genomics. His work in plant centromeres, and so these are the parts of chromosomes that mediate chromosome segregation during cell division, has really been groundbreaking. And it led to the discovery and sequencing of the first plant centromeres, these centromeres. And in fact, that was, I think, the sequencing of the first multicellular centromeres, including humans, so any of those that are working in human biology. And that was really a tremendous breakthrough in genomics. And his laboratory is also credited with developing a number of critical key tools that are used in laboratories around the world to study the functional organization of genomes. And his work has had major impacts on both fundamental and applied genomics. And for example, his laboratory, in collaboration with Robin Buell's group here and John Hagelson's group, also identified the RB locus, which is responsible for broad spectrum resistance to late blight in potatoes. And for those of you who may not realize that, that was responsible for the European potato famine in the 19th century. So it gives you a sense of the impact, again, of his work. He's published over 175 research manuscripts, including 50 in the past 5 years. And he's received a number of honors, including the Young Crop Scientist Award from the Crop Science Society, and was elected to Fellow of the AAAS, and was more recently selected as one of the top 1% cited researchers in his field by Thomson Reuters. So we are truly proud to have Jiming as a member of the plant science community in the Departments of Plant Biology and Horticulture here, and are especially pleased to honor him with this MSU Foundation professorship. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jiming, and he can tell us a little bit about what he actually does.
Thank you. Well, thank you all of you for coming. It's kind of an embarrassing moment for me. I know that I don't deserve anything on this campus. I have to earn on this campus. At the very beginning, I just want to thank everyone. Thank Vice President Steve Hugh, thank our deans, and also, who is not here, George Smith, is Associate Director for Ag Bio. Thanks, Vance, Danny, and the Faculty of Horticulture, Faculty of Plant Biology. Thank you for recruiting me here. I want to thank you for helping going through this midlife crisis for me. Now I'm peaceful. I'm settled down. I'm going to finish my career here. So thank you so much on this. Okay, so we talk about senior recruiting. We were just discussing with a few people. I know everybody want to hire, young professors, assistant professors, and I don't look like assistant professors, right? But I want to tell our deans that I don't look like assistant professor, but I can match with most of assistant professors the energy and the passion on science. And I don't know how I'm going to perform on this campus, but you can trust my working ethics for sure. And I will work my butt off here. And that's all I can say. Okay, so I want to start my this is the title, My Journey to MSU. You can see it's all green now. I want to start my journey talking in exactly 30 years ago, 1987. Look how young I was. I was very lucky to meet my near future PhD supervisor, Dr. Bikram Gill from Kansas State University. And he was giving a short course in Nanjing, where I was doing my master degree there. And I ended up with become his English translator. And it took a week. At the end of a week, I impressed him so much. He said, Jimmy, are you interested to come to my lab to pursue a PhD? He basically wanted to recruit me. So I want to tell you, 3 years ago, I went to Manhattan, Kansas, for his retirement party. And I told him the secret about how and why I impressed him. And so the reality is I didn't want to be the translator because my English was terrible. So the reason I became a translator is my master degree supervisor, Dr. Liu. He said, Jimmy, why are you worried? He said, look, this guy doesn't understand you're Chinese, right? I said, right? He said, look at the audience, those students, their English is not better than you. And you at least understand his research. I thought, you're right. No matter what I translate, nobody understands anyway. So I realized my supervisor is the only guy in the audience actually know what I'm translating. I remember during the whole week, I just look at him once in a while. He has this murky smile. I don't know if he's happy or just laughing about me. So I told him, I said, look, I fooled you basically, but it's too late for you to regret. So that was the story. Okay. But anyway, I would say those two men transformed me from I just had a raw energy and a passion, that's all I have, transformed me into a scientist today. And my journey probably will never end up at MSU without those two guys. Okay. 3 years later, I married my beautiful wife who sits here in this beautiful church. And I'm pretty sure that we were probably the first Chinese couple married in a Manhattan church. Maybe married in a Kansas church anyway. I'm pretty sure about that. And I understand, I still remember, I have no idea what the pastor was talking about. But my great roommate told me, Jimmy, all you need to say is yes. That was the whole process. He said, remember, after what he said, you say yes. So that's what I did. Okay, I have two awesome kids, my son Kevin, my daughter Angie. Again, I want to give all the credit to my wife because she had to actually quit her wonderful job for the second time. First time I had to move to Madison, she had to quit job in the East Coast. And she has to quit job to make sure my kids grown up as normal human beings. And they have been grown up really fast in the last couple of years. And you can see my son's hair grow longer than my daughter's. I wonder what's going to happen in the next few years. But I want to tell you, I'm very grateful to both Kevin and Angie because they have been very supportive for me to move here. And they were very happy to see me become excited. And that's very unusual. Okay? So they realized that they are not going back to Madison anymore because they have a lot of friends there. So it's very unusual for them to be a very positive way for me to move here. All right. So my first job, so I moved to Wisconsin in 1995. My first job really was to managing the Wisconsin potato breeding program. And as Steve already pointed out, during those 10 years, my most important co-worker are the inmates from minimum security camp, which is 20 miles away from our breeding station. So I could have worked with a dozen of those people every day during the harvesting planting season. And can you guess our most common topics of our conversation in the long field days during those 10 years? Can you guess what we talked about?
Philosophy.
Football, Green Bay Packer football, and Chinese Kung Fu, Bruce Lee movies, and some trash talking. So that's all I learned. I learned how to pop up a cluster of F-bomb without Chinese accent. Without Chinese accent, if you get me angry. I won't do that here. So, all right. But I have to admit that I was the worst, after even 10 years, I was the worst truck driver. Okay. But I'm the only guy have a PhD. I'm the worst driver. It doesn't make any sense. So you have to blame my buddy, Scott Wood, and you have to blame him because he's not a very good teacher. After 10 years, I still cannot handle that thing very well. Anyway, all right. So during the years, the last 22 years in Wisconsin, as Danny pointed out something, that my lab really did a lot of different things. So I don't have time, I have 5 minutes to talk about research. I'm going to tell you a single story we did in the last few years. This story is about a potato acromite problem. So some of you probably heard about acromite because this is actually we're running the acromite gel in the lab. Acromite is formed when asparagine, which is one of the amino acids, is heated to high temperature, such as frying, and then in the presence of reducing sugars, if you're heating up asparagine, the same time you also have sugars, and you're going to end up with acromite. And acromite is very well known, since I think the 1950s. It's very well known. It's a neurotoxin, and it's a carcinogen for many years. And that's known. That I know when we run acromite gel in the lab, we have to wear gloves. It's not the thing you want to touch. But in year 2002, I think the two European labs independently discovered that acromite actually present in food, in all sorts of food. But very warningly, as a potato scientist, acromite is especially highly enriched in snack food made from potato. So potato chips and the French fries. That was become 2002 was a year of a global hot terror about food. So if you probably don't heard about this, but if you go back and Google it, and you will find all those articles. You can see it's a mainstream medium. So it's Time magazine published do French fry cause cancers, potato chip scare. But one of the things, a very major event is in year 2005, state of California sued every company, food company, which sells potato chips or French fries. They sued McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, whatever. They sued every company. So that was like become a major issue because lawsuit. And the state of California asked every company to reduce the amount of acrylamide in your French fry. Okay, and so if you go back to 10 years ago, National Potato Council ranked to reduce the amount of acrylamide as the number one issue, number one problem, number one project. And about 5 years ago, actually, UW-Madison received $8 million, a single U.S. grant. It's the biggest USDA grant ever on our campus to solve these issues. And I was actually the acting PI on this grant for a couple of years. So anyway, so what do we do with it? How we deal with it? So you know that to make acrylamide, to fry the potato, right? You need asparagine, you need sugars. So if you can somehow cut down the amount of asparagine or cut down the amount of sugars, that you probably can minimize the amount of acrylamide. That's simple, right? So how we minimize the sugars? Because you know when you put the potato tuber into cold temperature, it's going to accumulate the sugars. So how you minimize that? So you have to look at all those literatures, and it's a mess because there's so many genes, so many enzymes is going to impact on the level of sugars. It's involving starch degradation, starch synthesis, whatever, or the sugar synthesis, sucrose, whatever. So if you look deeply in the literature, and you will find hundreds of papers indicating any one of those genes, if you mess around, it's going to impact the level of sugars. But we just gambled, took a chance on one of the genes, which is, we know that at the time we know that when you put it in the cold temperature, and the tuber is going to pump a lot of sucrose into vacuum. And this enzyme called vacuolar invertase, which converts sucrose into glucose and fructose. So we decide if we think if we can knocking out this particular genes, we're going to control the conversion from sucrose into the reducing sugars. We can minimize amount of reducing sugar, but increase the amount of sucrose. Sucrose is not a problem. Okay. So basically, we want to shut down this step. Ask Donald to shut down the step to what happens. Okay. So that's what we did. So this is a very regular potato, and those are the 3 gene silencing lines. So they are all look phenotypically normal. Plants look absolutely nothing wrong. But within those lines, this one single gene is knocked out, or it is knocked down. Okay? So when you put the potatoes in the room temperature, you make the potato chips, they all look normal because not much sugar accumulated. But as soon as you put the potato in the refrigerator for 4 degrees in 2 weeks, you can see the dramatic change of colors. And you can see the 3 line doesn't really that much impact. If you put the tuber for 2 months, and the potato chip look like chocolates, and those silencing lines look very much normal. And why? Because those silencing lines has very limited amount of sugars, glucose and fructose. Okay. And what about the acrylamide? So those are the room temperature tubers. We made a potato chip, and then we crushed the chips. We measured the amount of acrylamide. And this is called parts per billion. It's a strange way to represent the amount of acrylamide. So those are the numbers. 1,000 sounds like a very bad numbers. Okay, just remember that. But the problem right now is FDA doesn't have a specific regulation because we don't know how much acrylamide you eat is going to eventually cause cancers. It's not known. All the data is from mice. There's no human data. But we know that 1,000 is not a good number. Right now, I think the industry doesn't have a specific number. People think 300 is an acceptable number. So even cookies have acrylamide. So cookies about 50 to 100 if you measure the acrylamide level. Okay. So you see our silencing line and the regular potato has similar level of acrylamide. But as soon as you put it in the refrigerator, if you measure acrylamide in this kind of potato chip, it's skyrocketed. It's like a 20,000s. And you can see our silencing line, the number doesn't increase and actually continue to decrease. Okay. So this is a very simple work. It's a really amazing impact by silencing a single gene. it really achieved two goals by silencing a gene. One is you really minimize the amount of acromite. Second, you solve the color problem, because this is actually has traditionally been one of the most important traits in potato breeding. You want to make a potato chip with nice looking color. It doesn't brown. Okay? So it's really a silver bullet, solve two problems by silencing a single gene. So I want to teach you some Chinese, and we have a very famous word called 一箭双雕. What that mean? One arrow, two eagles. That's what that means. Everybody knows in Chinese. But of course, in this country, we cannot kill eagles. And in Wisconsin, we kill ducks. So basically, two ducks, one stone, but the same meaning. Okay. So I want to go back to, I actually designed the slide talking to the growers in Wisconsin. I want to go back to this very complicated slide. No one understands what it is, right? Don't worry. So I make this analogy. I said, this pathway, this sugar, starch, whatever pathway, it's like a football team. It's like a football team. Football game is the most complicated game, most complicated sports. You look at our sports MSU football team, they have 100 kids. And they have like a dozen coaches. They have a coach sits on the upper deck to look at binocular and microphone tell the head coach what we should do. It's the most complicated. It's just like this network, okay? But I told the people, I said, what we found this vacuolar gene is the quarterback of this whole team. Okay? We know that to win the game, football is a teamwork. You need everybody to play well to win the games. I mean, so especially the quarterback, I need those 5 unsung heroes. They call offensive linemen. Their average is 330 pounds per person. And their job is to protect the quarterback. Don't let him get hurt. That's all. They're very, very important. But you don't know the name of those guys. Those are true unsung heroes. But imagine that if I replace one of those guys. You need one play, I will become permanent concussion. And Aaron Rodgers probably, the career is permanently on injury list. Think about it, right? But, it's a teamwork. I told people, I said, but the most important thing is you need to find a good quarterback. And this is very easy to convince the grower in Wisconsin, because Green Bay Packers has been consistently good. Why? Because we have 2 great quarterbacks, which last like 20 years. Brett Favre has taken care of the team for a dozen years. Now you have Aaron Rodgers. And just look at our neighbors, the Chicago Bears. In the last 2 decades, they have changed the quarterback probably 20 times. This is why they cannot consistently win. So my dreams at MSU, that's my dream. My dream goal in MSU is to team with MSU plant scientists to find the quarterbacks that help plants to battle against the environmental global climate change. Plant has to survive against the Wisconsin winters, against the Florida summers, right? You have to deal with all sorts of crazy environmental change. And they are all those changes, for plant to deal with change is a very complicated network. But there's got to be quarterbacks. We need to find the quarterbacks to win the battles. Okay. Sometimes I'm thinking, every time somebody asks you to send a CV, I just got one this morning because I give a talk on campus. I feel it's not really my CV is not my CV. It's the GenLab CV. All those people piled up my our work. I had in my career, I already talked about my 2 important supervisors, and I had a dozen PhD students, 2 dozen postdocs, maybe 3 dozen visitors. This is one of my lab, very unique to my lab. I always have a bunch of visitors. They stay only 12 months, but they all made a lot of contributions, and are all my collaborators. But I want to specifically point out one of my students, Bala Paduta, now he's working for Dow Agro. He basically single-handedly for this vacuolar invertase genes. It's a wonderful piece of work. Thank you very much.
Right, so I now invite me and to come forward and have the Vice President officially invest you.
Put this on your neck. I hope it fits.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Cluster of F-bombs, prisoners, Ronald McDonald, and Green Bay Packers in football. I mean, I think this is the first investiture that's referenced all of those things. And Steve, you really set it up well, and well, you brought it home. That was a great talk, and only 2 really technical slides. So. You didn't even give anyone a chance to get lost in any technical stuff, so that was great. On behalf of the foundation, we want to extend our congratulations to you. And now you've got this great, it's called bling, right? You know the American term bling, so you have to wear this up and down the halls now in front of your graduate students and all your postdocs, and make sure they see your bling. Maybe put a hat back on backwards or something like that. We'll get you a Spartan baseball hat you can put on backwards. The foundation is, for those of you who don't know, is probably not what you think. We're not the people who call you to raise dollars. There's a different group on campus that does all the fundraising. We are a research foundation. At Wisconsin, it's called WARF. You probably were familiar with WARF. So we're like the research foundation of MSU. And I think thanks to the vision of Steve and the provost putting together these endowed professorships, we're in a position to fund these things, primarily because we had a great invention that provided us the capital to do that. So back in the late 70s and the 80s, there was a faculty member here who created this cisplatin and carboplatin technologies. The patents were licensed to a pharmaceutical company. It became a blockbuster cancer therapeutic. And in addition to saving millions of lives, it generated quite a bit of revenue, which is parked in the foundation. So it's that type of discovery and innovation that happens in the lab that gets translated out into the real world that impacts lives and generates a little money as well that helps us to sort of complete the circle and use the resources for this purpose. So that's why we exist. The other things we're involved in is we continue to work in the areas of technology commercialization. We have a research park that we look after. We have this entity called Spartan Innovations, which is designed to help new ideas get turned into companies. And we have a small venture fund that's called Red Cedar Ventures, so we have a venture capital fund as well. And so that's really the business of the foundation. And so I wanted to extend our thanks to you. We're glad you're here. I can't wait to have you present to our board. We'll invite you to present to our board, so I hope you bring the Ronald McDonald slides. I think it'll be just fantastic. And so with that, let me just extend our thanks, and I'm going to ask the dean to come back up, and I think you get to close the program today. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so we now invite everyone here to join us for a reception next door. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.